Hello, this is going to be my Bard heal build video. So, off we go. I'll start with the gear. First off, the best helmet to use is of course the helmet that comes from Master Temple the Spider. You get the regular version and then upgraded in M26 to the exalted version. Gives 20% performance regeneration for the Bard. After that, of course, we also have the debuff chestplate. This one comes from M26, and you can upgrade it further in Demon Web, I believe. If we get to the campaign store, we buy the regular Brigand cloth, and then we upgrade it in the Demon Web store. And it gives a 5% stat debuff aura, defense, awareness, crit avoidance. And the range on it is only 10 feet, so you have to stand very close to the enemy. I'll show you real quick exactly the range on it. So there it is up there, that's the aura. And then if I back up a little bit, it disappears. So it's about a little bit closer. It's about, there we go. So it's about this range, which does not really look like 10 feet to me, but that's how the game has it. So just note, if you use that chest plate, then you're going to have to stand incredibly close to the enemies if you want to proc it. Just make sure you don't stand in the KV of a fighter tank, or you don't accidentally stand in the damage that the mobs are dealing, because you can very easily die or mess up your team if you do that. These gloves are still pretty much the best gloves to use. They come from Dragon Hunts, 7.5% power, pretty much always 100% of the time, and the incoming healing really doesn't matter. For weapons, I'm just using the Weaver weapons, but of course we can also swap it out for... You can use the perfect weapons if you want, or you can use Feywood, Durgar, Mastercraft, whatever. I just use Weavers because they're free for me, so just use whatever you have available, but Mastercraft is ultimately the best to use. These boots, of course, that I have, they come from the Demon Web Pit store. You can run advanced Demon Web Pits in order to get the currency. They are the healing ones. And then after that, I have the neck and waist bonus is the Merilith set. You can also switch that out for the Vistani set, just depending on what your team already has. But pretty much use the Merilith set because it's high item level. You would lose, you'd probably lose around 3,000 item level if you put the Vistani set on. So I like to use the Merilith whenever I can. After that, we use the Grace Ring for another debuff source. This doesn't have any stats or anything good for us, but it does debuff the target by a decent amount. 3.5% defense and awareness when you cast a damaging AoE, which of course is our at-will. So you can have 100% uptime on this roughly. Ring, we're still using this one. I believe this is a Mastercraft ring, and it's fairly inexpensive. It gets 5% outgoing healing. You can also use the, well, let's see how much the restoration ring is. So this one's only 350,000, the plus one is 470,000, and it's been like that for a while. The new one is the Scintillant legendary ring, and there's only 2 plus ones up for 4 mil each, so theoretically a non-plus one would probably be around 2 to 3 mil, I would say. So it's way too expensive for me to feel the need to upgrade, especially when there's probably going to be a new one next mod in like a month and a half, or a month. And they have the exact same stats, they have the exact same bonus, it's just item level, 200 item level difference for the plus one. We still use this shirt, but next mod obviously we're going to be switching this to the new one. But this one gives 5% outgoing healing just in general, and we use the outgoing healing rating. You can just buy this in the auction house, it's very cheap and easy. Our pants you can also buy in the auction house. You get 5% power when at least one teammate is more than 30 feet away from you. The bonus is, or the tooltip is bugged, or the bonus is bugged. I'm not sure if they're ever going to fix it or not to make it to where it is how the tooltip is stated, but currently you only need to have one teammate away from you, and 30 feet is probably about from the campfire circle to about like right here roughly, give or take. So it's not too far away from your teammates. And you get that 5% power like I said. Our primary artifact, we're using the Halaster Blast Scepter, but of course we can use whatever our team needs. The Lantern, Mythalar probably not, but the Dragonbone Blades, and there's a few other ones. I don't have them in the bank, but I just use the Scepter as my primary most of the time, unless I need to switch. I use the Rod of Pain. This of course was a in-store pack, very expensive on the auction house. I use the Merilith Mask. You have to get it from the dungeon or buy from the auction house and then upgrade it in the Mints of Branson store. It's fairly tedious, but you can buy it at Mythic in the auction house if you want to. And then I use the Demon's Reach. This is, of course, from Demogorgon, Master Demogorgon, and I use this primarily because of the Forte rating, which I'll get to my ratings in a little bit. Enchantments, I'm using 2 of these just because I don't need any other ratings, and then I use 2 Crit Strike enchantments. I use the new Opal one. This gives Forte outgoing healing. I use 4 amethysts, or you can also switch those out for garnets if you have them. I like using the Bulwark of Brimstone Overload. You can also, if you want to, you can swap that out for the AP gain one. This one, you can buy all these in the auction house for pretty cheap. And I use the 5% Crit Strike one. This one's expensive, so you may not want to use this, but I have to use it to maximize my Crit Strike because of all the debuffs I'm using. Of course, Lightning Flash, movement speed bonus, you can switch this out for AP gain if you want to. Next we'll go over the boons. So I use Power Offense boon, Defense, and Revive Sickness. You can of course use movement speed or mount speed bonus depending on what you're running, but in dungeons I put on Revive Sickness. For boons, we go for of course power, hit points, and then go for movement speed, and then go for crit strike and crit severity, and then awareness, defense, damage reduction versus fiends, damage reduction versus undead, and crit avoidance if you have points left over. And then for our tier 5 boons, we go for Forte and outgoing healing. I don't think I would swap either of these for anything else. And then our master boon, there's really 2 options, Blessed Advantage or Blessed Resilience. You can use either one. I'm sure, especially if you have 2 healers, you'll probably use like opposite ones, but next mod it's not really going to matter because we're going to be able to use both of them. So you can just switch whichever one you want to. It's not a big deal on the difference between the 2 of them. Companions, our primary summon companion, I'm currently using the Drist. I use that in dungeons pretty much the whole time. You can also use the Tutor if your tank doesn't have it. And for single target boss fights, you can use the Spine Devil. It'll provide probably a bit of a higher damage increase than the Drist will, but not by much. And then the Death Scorpion is for certain pieces of content where you might want to try to prioritize combat advantage on the target, like the last boss in Demon Web Pits, for example, or the last boss in Temple of the Spider. Equipment, I'm using 2 full outgoing healing ones and 1 crit strike outgoing healing. Our enhancement, you can use a debuff enhancement, so I'm currently using the Dulled Senses awareness one. You can also use armor break, or blurred vision decreases the damage the target deals, so if you want to increase the damage that the target takes, I think there's another one. Weapon Break also decreases the damage he deals. Vulnerability, that decreases his crit avoidance, so that increases your damage, or your team's damage. Reduce, and here's the other one, slowed reactions. So those are the four. So it's slowed reactions, vulnerability, armor break, and dulled senses. The two main ones you want to use are dulled senses, armor break. The other two are just kind of leftover ones. I use the companion enhancement for higher item level, and then for our powers, I use the Raptor, of course, the Golden Bullet, the Black Dragon Ion Stone, the Quickling, and the Fawn and Utility. So all power, crit strike, and a little bit extra outgoing healing. And then I use, for mounts, of course I have Mystic Aura equipped. Usually the healer's on Mystic and the tank is on Runic Aura. But if the tank doesn't have Runic and only Mystic, you can of course switch over. And then for trials, Pack Tactics is also another option. But for dungeons, it's usually Runic and Mystic that the supports run. Our combat power, of course, is whatever the tank isn't running, essentially. So we have the Pegasus is 15%, the Swarm is 15%, the E-Lion is 15%, and the T-Rex is 15%. T-Rex. After that, we have our mount insignia bonuses and insignias. So for our collars, I use movement speed, crit severity, encounter power, gold bonus, and outgoing healing. You can also switch the crit severity out one for an AP gain one, because obviously I don't need as much crit severity as I actually have, but I just use it because I don't have an AP gain one. For our bonuses, we use 2 Menders, Tactician's Restoration, that gives outgoing healing when you have full AP. Lionheart's Perseverance for a little bit extra survivability, and Survivalist Expertise for the extra Forte rating. You don't really have to focus too much on the Rest Sickness increased potency as long as you have this guild boon. That's the important thing. In terms of our insignias, I try to prioritize as much Forte and Forte as possible. The only ones that do not have Forte are these Enlightens and this one Rhythm that I slotted in, because if I switch this out for another Dominance, I would actually be overcapped in the Forte rating. So I just had to use this as an extra overflow sort of insignia. So that's all of my gear, that's all my everything. Now of course my attributes are Wisdom, Charisma. You can also switch Charisma over to Dexterity if you want, or not Dexterity, Constitution, if you want extra survivability. My hit points currently with only 1 VIP is over 1.2 million. I think with 5 VIPs it's probably close to 1.3 million, which helps with my survivability, of course. So in terms of my stats, I'm not currently buffed up, but if I proc my buffs, it's Flask of Potency and my tray down there, and then Squash Soup and Wildstorm Elixir. Also the Forger's Box, which I'm currently trying to upgrade, is the last one that I would use. I'm just waiting for the days to upgrade my necklace in order to get the last couple rods. So I would use that to try to get my power higher. In terms of my ratings, I have capped crit strike rating. I have capped power rating with the Runic Aura. So both of those together will give me, both Runic and Mystic both can get me up to 80 over the cap, or the green cap. My Forte and outgoing healing both go up by 5,500 when I'm in a group, so they are also both in the cap. Forte goes up to 89.7 thousand, and my outgoing healing goes up to about 90,000, both in the green. So outgoing healing, of course, is in 85% with that rating. and then it goes up by 5% with this bonus, this class feature, which I'll go over in a little bit. This class feature will actually give you 5% outgoing healing percentage, and it's pretty much 100% uptime. So that's 90% outgoing healing. Forte, of course, goes up to about 67%, so that's pretty good with the rating that I have. My power goes up to, with the Runic Aura, it's 66%. With this bonus, it goes up to about 72%. And then with the 5 Raptors, it goes up to 88 to 90%. And then, of course, if I had the Forger's box, then that would get me the extra percent or 2 that I needed if I wasn't already capped. Of course, I gained that 5% power from this shirt, so you're not always going to have this bonus, but you're going to have it more often than not. And then my crit strike goes up by 7.5% with the lightning flash, so that goes up to 88.5%. The extra 1.5% is not that big a deal. And you can always, if you're running a trial, you can get that 2% from your other healers fairly easily. Of course, crit severity is going to be, I'm pretty sure it goes up to 90 when I'm in a group for some reason. But even then, it's still going to be 90 because of this 10% extra bonus we get on the Bard healer. So stats are pretty much all 90, even with all of these debuff sources. Now I will go over the powers. So our primary power to proc Lightning Flash and the Grace Ring and Dulled Senses is going to be Phantasmal Concerto. It's an AoE at will. If you don't have mobs, you can switch over to Reprise because it's quite a bit faster cast time. It's about half the cast time speed, so it's much easier to proc your Jewel of Merilith, and also it's easier to go from playing your songs to playing the at-will, like back and forth, because it takes a while for this to cast. Our second at-will is Arpeggio, which we use to heal. It says it's 250 magnitude, but there's a feat that changes that, which I'll go over in a second. Our 3 encounters, I use Dancing Light, Flourish, and Baseline. If you want to, you can switch Dancing Lights over to Delayed Play, but I find it very clunky to use, so I personally don't like it. But essentially, Dancing Lights debuffs the target's damage by 5% for 6 seconds, so it's a little bit extra for the mitigation for trials. Flourish increases the healing of your next song by 50%, and Baseline increases your performance up to a maximum of 200 when it's fully channeled, which is 10 seconds. Delayed Play, you essentially store a song, so if I press Delayed Play and then I play a song, it doesn't actually do anything, but it goes down there in the slot in the bottom, and then I can press it again to play that song. Then you can store it before boss fights and everything to try to help out your performance a little bit, but I personally just find it clunky, so I don't like using it personally. And then for our dailies, I have Inspiration and Curtain Call slotted. I don't use Inspiration all that much, but Curtain Call is very nice because of those benefits. Essentially, it cancels all of your song effects or all of the songs that you have currently going on, and it grants added effects based on what songs you cancel. So with Blaze Flamenco, which is this one, it restores 100% action points. Rejuvenating Carol, which is the heal over time, does an 800 magnitude flat heal. Warding Carol reduces damage taken by 10%. Warding Carol is the cleanse song. And Sheltering Etude, which is the most important one, gives an 800 magnitude shield. And Sheltering Etude is the one that when allies drop below 50% health, they will get a 600 magnitude heal. So after that, our class features, we have Sforzando, like I mentioned earlier, that's 5% flat outgoing healing, pretty much 100% uptime. And then our second class feature is Famos Allah. This is the one that increases your movement speed with Blaze Flamenco by 10% in combat and 20% outside of combat. If you're in a boss fight and you want a little bit extra healing, you can switch over to Mystifying Strikes or Starstruck if you want, but I personally don't think that these two do very much, so I just always keep this class feature in. And it especially helps in certain trials where your teammates might have to get to certain locations quicker. That extra 10% movement speed helps out. For our feats, you always want to have Diminuendo slotted in. This makes it to where the first tap of that Arpeggio at will is actually going to heal for, if we read the description, 500 magnitude. And every 1 second you channel, it decreases by 50 to a minimum of 250. And it resets after 5 seconds after you stop channeling. So it's a quick reset whenever that happens. And you just tap it here and there pretty much to heal big hits. It's our primary big hit or medium hit healer, essentially. The second one, you can choose either one, but I just use Rhapsody at Arms to increase my survivability a little bit. It increases, up to pretty much 3% damage mitigation, which is just a little bit extra. I personally use Sudden Muse for this one, but if you're using Delayed Play, of course you're going to want to use Vamp instead. This makes it to where it doesn't always clear the stored song. It's a 20% chance for you to gain this effect whenever you are playing a song in combat. But this one makes it to where you get one of 3 effects. Every 3 seconds you have a 10% chance to gain one of these 3 effects, which you can read those real quick and decide on your own, essentially. The next one, it's really your decision as to which one you want to choose. Desperate Finale makes it to where if you drop below 20 20% of your performance, then you instantly restore 600 performance, so that's 60% of your performance back every 360 seconds, which is of course 10 minutes, I think, or 6 minutes now. Pianissimo, on the other hand, just decreases the flat healing and cost of all of your main healing songs, just in general, which I find Pianissimo to do a little bit better, because it will just allow you to have better performance management overall in the fight. You might heal a little bit less, but I don't find the actual difference in healing to be all that detrimental. So I personally prefer Pianissimo over Desperate Finale, because I'm hardly ever running out of performance. The only times I run low on performance is during the last boss in MDWP, in the Axe phase, and then the second boss at the very end of that boss fight as well. For the last feat, of course, we want to have Storyteller. This makes it to where if you have 3 songs, you gain 15% damage for DPS, 15% healing for the other healer, and 15% damage mitigation for the tank. Unfortunately, these effects do not apply to yourself, so you do not gain the 15% outgoing healing. It only applies to your allies. Of course, another bard can give it to you, but you can't give it to yourself. Now, in terms of the songs, of course you can pin and slot all the songs if you want, but the pinned songs are the ones that you have to manually play. The slotted songs are the quick play songs. So, I manually play Blaze Flamenco. This gives an extra 2% damage to all your teammates, plus another 2% damage for magical. I think that's how it works. Maybe not. I thought it was an extra 2%, but that might be on the DPS side. And it lasts for 36 seconds. Rejuvenating Carol, our main heal over time. This is a 30-second timer, and it does a 80 heal magnitude. Of course, that's different based on Pianissimo. So both of these are around the same amount of time, which is good. Defender's Minuet is basically our intercession. It's a high magnitude heal. That's why I have it in the quick play slot. I just tap it real quick if someone drops like a big hit, for example. Wording Carol is another one I have in the quick play slot because I don't use it all that often. I only use it to cleanse, and it's nice to be able to just quickly do that and focus back on my healing rather than specifically going out of my way to play it to cleanse. And then Aurora Fantasia, I never play. I don't think many people actually find it very useful, so that's just pretty much an extra. Sheltering Etude, on the other hand, is our main source of healing overall. It's our main source of burst healing, I should say. It makes it to where if people drop below 50% health, they get that extra 600 heal magnitude. But you can also play it before they drop below 50% health. If you play it a second time, it will clear out the previous version, or the previous Sheltering Etude, and it will heal them for that 600 and apply them, or it will apply the song again. So if I play Sheltering Etude, it applies it to myself for 60 seconds, and then I play it a second time. You see that little burst heal that it just did? That would have been the extra 600 heal magnitude that I got. I can play it again, and then it reapplies it and gives me that extra healing as well. And that Medic's Devotion thing is my arms, I believe. Yeah. So next. So the way that I pretty much try to have those three songs always up. Blaze Flamenco, and then I cast Flourish before I play this next song, which is the Rejuvenating Carol. And then of course I play Sheltering Etude. And then anytime I'm not healing, I'm trying to proc all of my effects. So I go to the boss fight and I'm pretty much just doing this, trying to proc up to 5 stacks of the Apocalypse set, which is definitely hard with this at-will, which is why it might be better to actually run this at-will if you want to. So let me reapply my songs since they're all running out. So you can see the stacks can go up to 5 much easier with this at-will, which is why it might be better to run this in certain pieces of content. And also it will still apply that Midnight's Malady, which is this ring, of course. And of course Dulled Senses has a pretty high uptime. Look, it just went away and then it reprocced like pretty much instantly. And of course with that daily that I was talking about, with Curtain Call, I usually like to use it for, like in dungeons, I like to use it whenever my Rejuvenating Carol and Blaze Flamenco are about to run out. So if we play those two songs real quick, and then just attack and do whatever we're doing, you know, do artifact calls, blah 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 blah, keep proccing all my debuff stuff, and wait for that timer to get down to, you know, like 1 or 2 seconds or 3 seconds or whatever. The reason why you want to do that is clear it when it's about to run out, so you don't clear it at like 20 seconds left. So now play that, it gives me that shield, and then I replay the songs like I would have done normally anyway, and it gives me that nice big shield, which helps a little bit with survivability in certain pieces of content. So that's essentially the strategy that I use for that daily. So that's pretty much everything. My stats are pretty much all where I want them to be. So of course, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask in the comments. But thanks for watching, and I hope this helped you.